What is up, team? I'm Hunter, that's Kyle. Today we are going to teach you how to guide your athletes through learning the human flag. Now, the human flag is a really demanding gymnastics style, I would say party trick more than anything. But the context for this isn't that, we're not asking athletes to do thrusters, pull-ups, and human flag here. We've got some programming that involves a gymnastics only day, what we refer to kind of internally as playground day, where we have a full class dedicated to just developing new skills, addressing, either movements that athletes really want to improve or occasionally sprinkling in some really wild and unique movements that we don't always ask, but can actually be really beneficial to an athlete's development in their athleticism, their body awareness, their coordination, all those sorts of things that we really ask an athlete to do the other 364 days of the year. Today we've got a challenging movement, and we're going to take you through a full progression that allows every single athlete in your class to experiment with a version of this movement so that everybody can participate. And odds are you probably have one, maybe two stragglers in that class who can actually perform the full-fledged human flag with a little bit of coaching. So we're going to hopefully provide that to you guys today. Before we get really deep into the actual nuts and bolts here, after experimenting a little bit with this movement and talking with our kind of internal gymnastics coach, Coach Jack, shout out to him for helping out with this progression. This is a very demanding movement on the upper body and midline, and in a different way than a lot of folks might typically be used to. So before we actually get rolling, we'll put this all in the description below, but some side plank bends and some dumbbell curl and press is going to help prepare our upper body and midline for this movement. Again, I have some B-roll of Kyle demonstrating these movements here. Ted will cut that in. But once we go through this warm-up for everybody, we're ready. We're about ready to go. I'm gonna take you guys through a progression. This is starting at the baseline here. This is going to be the, quote, easiest version of this movement, which might be appropriate for some of your more scaled athletes. But I recommend taking your entire class through the whole warm-up so that, one, like everybody can participate in some way, shape, or form, but also as we get more advanced, athletes kind of know where they need to kind of set themselves once we actually let them go into this class. So the first version of the human flag is going to be with a hand on the ground and a barbell in the rig. Now, this barbell is set up because Kyle is going to be pulling in this direction on this barbell here, but if you need to, we can easily just grab a band, wrap it around some J-cups, and make sure this barbell stays firmly fixed in the rig here. We know we don't need this, so I'll just keep this off here, but should be able to do that pretty easily for most of you. The other thing is the height. So Kyle's gonna get into kind of a side plank with a straight arm. Now this is really important because this bicep and elbow actually gets a pretty good workout when we're doing any version of this human flag. So he's gonna put his hand down and he's gonna get in what you would see as kind of a traditional side plank, just with that hand in a different position. And then he's gonna reach this arm overhead, grabbing a hold of the pull-up bar. And this is about the kind of setup that we want. His hand, both top and bottom, are right in line, and then I could draw a line from his hand straight down to his heels, just like that. And he's already, you can take a quick break, he's already supporting himself in kind of that, what looks like the beginning stages of a human flag. If you have athletes who struggle with even this version, an easier way would actually be to do that on an elbow. Kyle, can you he can't actually reach. We would need to lower this barbell a little bit for him, but just doing this on an elbow and he grabs a hold of the rig will make that even easier. Or an alternative is to use a dumbbell. So he can do this on his own, he's a fit guy. Gets into that side plank with a straight arm and then gets that dumbbell overhead. You can already see he's kind of got that, has to really stabilize his midline. He's active shoulder here, active shoulder here. You can relax really quick, Kyle. And again, even if that is a little too much, he can just do that same version from the elbow with the arm overhead. He's getting a good workout here. These are two terrific options for your more scaled athletes that get them into a version of this of the human flag with a little bit lower stakes. Maybe there's a mat underneath here just for safety and comfort, but really good version for your more scaled athletes or just a warm up for the more advanced versions. So now we're gonna elevate bodies off the floor here. So now we have a slightly different setup. We're actually going to use the barbell here and then the pull-up bar like so. As far as the setup goes, you'll notice that this time we've got that full barbell, or that normal barbell with the bands to make sure this thing stays nice and stable. And what we're also going to make sure that we're doing is, you probably set this up before your class, making sure that if you have taller athletes, the barbell and pull-up bar need to be farther away from each other. So we want a big gap between that top arm and that bottom arm. Hands are super close together. It's not going to work super well. So this works for Kyle. And what we're going to do is we're going to actually start, instead of, we did that straight arm kind of plank hold, we're actually going to start with that elbow tucked, bent, right attached to his side. Okay, this is a little bit easier than going straight to a full kind of double straight arm version. He's got his hand under kind of an underhand grip, and he's going to reach that top arm over, and he's going to make sure that these hands are right on top of each other. Okay, his feet are still on the ground, and he's generally facing through the rig here. And all he's going to do is jump, tuck, and rotate at the same time, and he's going to rotate towards the camera, okay? So he's going to tuck those knees, and then as he rotates, just a very brief little hold here. You can see we're starting to get into that motion where we're rotating, getting ready to maybe straighten those legs out in the next step. We want you to have your athletes perform 3 to 5 kind of rotations in each direction, because athletes are going to find that one side is significantly easier and stronger than the other, like most kind of single arm, single leg things that we do in the gym. So once Kyle's done that in both directions here, we can then start to talk about elevating and lifting the feet. The box is going to provide the easiest version for this. Box height is just going to be dictated by kind of the height of the pull-up bar and the athlete. But what Kyle can do now is get his feet on that box with his knees bent. He can kind of situate himself here. So gotta keep that elbow nice and tucked, just like that. And as the coach, I can make sure that he's got his hands stacked here. I think your hips need to come forward a little bit, otherwise you're gonna move back. Yep, excellent. So in this position here, I see his hand, his shoulder, his hip, and his heel pretty much all in a nice straight line. And then if he were to, don't do it, kick up straight, you can relax for a second. If he were to kick up straight, everything would be in a nice straight line. But go ahead and get set up one more time here. We can do this bent knee version. Gets himself set up. And if he feels confident in this position, he can gently kind of jump himself off the box briefly and then re-engage with that box, okay? So he's not jumping very high. Again, we can have kind of a spotter, a coach or a peer assisting just to make sure he doesn't feel like he's gonna fall, or some mats on the ground for safety. But we're slowly starting to think about lifting, and at the same time that he is lifting those feet off the ground, he's really thinking about pulling with his top arm and pushing with that bottom arm. So one more time, Kyle. His hands underneath, underhand grip. He's going to tuck this elbow right attached to his rib cage. I'm going to make sure I see a straight line. I'm going to have him move forward just a little bit with the hips. Good. And when he's ready, exactly, he can just do this, actively pulling here, pushing here, and then really bracing that midline. The next element to this is actually having a partner try to hold. So I'm going to move the box, and again, a partner or coach, we can actually keep the box or remove it. So I'll keep the box just for demonstration. So Kyle will get set up with his feet on the box, just like he was before. Yep, hands look good, hands are in line. He's going to get those feet up, and when he gives me the count, all I need to do is hold his legs just like that. Real easy, right? And then I'll set that down. Pretty challenging, huh? Yes. Yeah, okay? Even that is super challenging, and a lot of your athletes might end up being there. Maybe Kyle tries to hold for 10 seconds, he comes down, and then I try to hold for 10 seconds while he supports me, okay? Really easy way to allow lots of athletes to do a version of this movement. Then we think about the straight legs. So let's say you've got athletes who, yep, I can actually hold that. I can hold that without, think you can hold that with the bent knee version for a second? For a second, we'll find out, okay? Okay, when you're ready, 3, 2, 1. I'm gonna let go here. Yep, okay, so a second, that's fine. But what we can do next is start thinking about getting the box a little bit farther away, and Kyle can then put his legs straight out onto that box, and then work on the same thing, kind of kicking up just off the box for a split second here. Go ahead, bend that elbow. Is that about the right distance for you? Yep. Make sure that, yep, and then he can try to hop up just gently, hold as briefly as he needs to. Excellent. Maybe have athletes do 3 to 5 reps with either straight or bent knees, whichever version is more appropriate for them. Okay? The final kind of iteration of that, aside from, actually we'll do the partner version. So now I'm going to hold those legs out straight for you. And the nice part about a partner doing this is I can give Kyle a lot of assistance. So let's try to kick up here. Straight arm. I can give him a lot of assistance, and then he can even go to straighten his arm. Look, we did it. Okay, here we go, coming down. Okay, that straight arm version is going to be the most challenging version. Athletes will feel that. Lots of strain on the elbow and the bicep. That's part of the reason we had those curls in the warm-up. But we have the straight arm, the straight leg version, and then the straight arm version for the most advanced athletes. And then you might even have athletes who can do that completely unassisted. So once we've demonstrated that we can do that all with the box and then with a partner, that's when we might move the box away. And Kyle's going to try to apply that jump and rotate and see if you can get into a, even if it's just a 1 second bent knee flag hold. So again, we're going to go back a couple of steps. His elbow's bent. He's going to jump, rotate, and try to hold. Excellent. Pretty good. Not bad. Okay? And then again, athletes who are more advanced, we can add that jump from kind of the floor into a full straight out human flag. We have to make sure as coaches that we're putting this sort of thing into context for athletes, because independent of all of the other stuff that we do, this might look silly. It might appear silly. It's a more advanced movement that, again, is more of a party trick than a functional movement. But when we put it into context of being able to, let's say, use an active shoulder, a foundational kind of element of functional movement, midline stability, all of those things, body awareness, coordination, all those sorts of things start to tie together nicely. And we have a movement that provides a huge challenge for even your fittest athletes, but just demonstrated 6 different ways that every single athlete in your class can get the feeling of doing this advanced movement without having to feel limited because they can't actually do the full human flag like Kyle or I. Okay? There you have it, a little bit of a progression to go from 0 to 100 on the human flag, a much highly skilled, highly advanced gymnastics movement, but I think you're going to be surprised. I'd be willing to bet you have that one random athlete who just happens to be able to put themselves in the right position and get a human flag. Take a picture, tag us, send it to us. I want to see your athletes get into as close of a human flag position as you can. We're looking forward to it ourselves. See you later.